Chapter 479. But Manager Ji has not been in Ming-Chi for 2 years. One feared that it would be troublesome to inquire about Ming-Chi's matters. She said. Ji Yushu smiled, and there was an indescribable pride in his eyes. Shun young lady must not underestimate the Feng Xian pawn shop. Even though this one was not in the Ding capital for 2 years, and the Feng Xian pawn shop was closed, but the business still needs to be done. Otherwise, where would the money come from to support the family? Bai Xiaoshang is still doing it. After all, 2 years of harvest cannot be thrown away in vain. Xin young lady finished speaking. What news do you want to inquire about? My Feng Xian pawn shop will naturally serve young lady. Xin Miao chuckled. Since Manager Ji said so, I am assured. Today one is here to do 3 business deals, and all of them are to buy news. First, does Manager Ji know about the death of the little Marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and 2 years ago? Ji Yushu was surprised for a moment and looked at Xin Miao. Why is Xin young lady inquiring about this? The Xie family and my Xin family are after all Ming-Chi's military family. Even though the Marquis of Lin and my father do not have the same political views, but martial artists appreciate each other. As the saying goes, the fox grieves when the rabbit dies. The little Marquis of Xie's generation was a talent, but died tragically on the battlefield. Thus one feel pity in one's heart. One would like to ask Manager Ji to help me to inquire about the clues of the little Marquis death, including the matter of keeping it in. Ji Yushu drank a mouthful of tea and smiled. This is easy to handle. It is just that the matter of Xie Jingxing's death is known to everyone, so it is not easy to inquire about different things. This one cannot guarantee that one would be able to inquire about it. After all, the lamp goes out after a person dies, and it has been too long. Manager Ji just have to do things diligently. If one really cannot find it, it is also all right with me. Xin Miao picked up the teapot and poured herself a cup of tea before speaking lightly. The second business deal. Does Manager Ji know that there is an imperial physician in the Ming-Chi's palace called Gao Yang? With a pu sound, Ji Yushu spurted out a mouthful of tea. Xin Miao gave Jingzhe a look, and Jingzhe quickly handed over a handkerchief. Ji Yushu took the handkerchief and wiped the water stains on his body in a flurry before hearing Xin Miao saying, Manager Ji seems to be very surprised? Ku. Ji Yushu said, indeed somewhat surprised. Why would Xin young lady think of looking for the imperial physician in the palace? I was entrusted by someone. Xin Miao looked at him. Shopkeeper Ji, have you never heard of this name? Gao Yang shook his head. This is the first time hearing about it. It seems that her medical skills are not that good, otherwise she would have been famous throughout the world. He looked at Xin Miao and said with some difficulty, to be honest with you, how would young lady be involved with the palace? Although Bai Xiaosheng is doing business, there are too many forces involved in the palace. It's not good for us businessmen to take risks. Xin Miao looked at him and did not speak, but her calm eyes made Ji Yushu somewhat uneasy. Ji Yushu coughed twice and inexplicably his voice became softer. It is not that it is not possible, but one need to add more money. Manager Ji need not worry about money. Xin Miao smiled. Manager Ji will not be short of it. After Shan Miao's first 2 deals, Ji Yushu was already short of breath with a guilty conscience and laughed dryly twice. One do not know what is the third news that Xin young lady wants to buy about. The third deal is somewhat difficult. Xin Miao looked at him. But I believe that with Manager Ji's ability, it is only a matter of time. When Ji Yushu heard it, he forced a smile. Many thanks to Xin young lady's trust. But what is it that can make Xin young lady feel difficult? I want to inquire about a person. Shun Miao put down the teacup. His Highness Prince Rue of the Great Liang. Ji Yushu's hand that was holding the teacup trembled slightly, but his face had an unfathomable expression. Oh? Why would Xin young lady think of inquiring about His Highness Prince Rue? According to this one's knowledge, this His Highness Prince Rue just came to the Ding capital not long ago. Even if there is a friendship, at most Shun young lady would be able to see him at the tribute banquet. Could it be that Xin young lady is like those noble females and admire Prince Rue's beauty, so she specially came to inquire? When Ji Yushu said till the end, one did not know why he became happy again. His voice changed from the depression earlier to a rare excitement. Chapter 480. Jingzhe and Guyu were about to explode from anger at the back. Ji Yushu's mouth was full of nonsense, and if it was heard by people outside, One did not know how they would think of Shin Miao. But when the master spoke, the servants could not interrupt. Thus both of them could only endure their anger and look at Ji Yushu in disdain. Shin Miao lightly looked at Ji Yushu's excited appearance of scratching his ears and cheeks and suddenly smiled. Yes, I also admire his peerless beauty. Ji Yushu was surprised. He suddenly opened his mouth wide as he pointed at Shin Miao in disbelief and stammered. These words are true? Shin Miao nodded her head and said seriously, really? Ji Yushu seemed to have discovered a great secret and could not suppress his excited expression. He laughed twice and said, since that is the case, this one will definitely help young lady to inquire about Prince Rue's situation. See if there are other young ladies around him. Shin Miao got up and nodded her head at Ji Yushu. Then many thanks to Manager Ji. If you find anything, trouble someone to send a letter to the residence, and I will naturally come to Feng Xian Pawn Shop to meet with Manager Ji. She took out a silver ingot from her sleeves and placed it in front of Ji Yushu. This is the deposit. Ji Yushu smiled. Shin young lady is too polite. There is no need to talk about deposit between you and me. As he spoke, he kept the silver ingot into his sleeves. Jingzha and Guyu rolled their eyes at him a few more times. Shin Miao smiled. It is a matter of course to take money to do things. It is just that Manager Ji needs to remember one point. Her eyes were gentle, but the words that she said had a bit of sharpness. By Xiao Shan's rule of doing business is that goods are genuine at fair prices. Since one came to Manager Ji to inquire about information, naturally one would not wish to hear fake information. The information must be true, and it is best if it is useful to me. Otherwise one would have spent the money, but obtained useless information. Shin Miao lowered her head and smiled. It would be bad if Manager Ji's reputation was ruined and the business could not continue. Ji Yushu was surprised for a moment when Shin Miao had already called Jingzha and Guyu out. He was stunned for a moment and heard Hong Ling sending Shin Miao off with a smile. He looked at the teacup in front of him and suddenly sneezed. He rubbed his nose and stood up before pushing the door to the neighboring room. He pulled open a landscape painting in front of him, and behind it was a door. Ji Yushu opened the door and just walked in when he was kicked by someone and almost fell down. As soon as he closed the door, he angrily shouted at the instigator, Gao Yang. The person sitting behind the door was in fluttering white robes and had a sage-like demeanor. He was waving his folding fan and had a cultured and elegant appearance. But the words that he said were not polite. Ji Yushu, is there something wrong with your brain? If you carry on like this, you would not even know if you were sold as a fool. Ji Yushu said angrily, you are smart. You are smart, but others still found out the clues. He said he wanted to see Imperial Physician Gao. Shut up. The person in the corner finally couldn't help but speak. Who else could it be other than Xie Jingxing, who was dressed in a luxurious purple robe? He swept a glance at Ji Yushu, noisy. Ji Yushu felt wronged and said, Third older brother, I do not know anything. I left the capital with you, and just returned when others found out that something was wrong. This is clearly Gao Yang's fault. Ji Yushu looked at Gao Yang fiercely. Speak. Is there something wrong with you that was seen by Shin young lady? This elegant room was adjacent to the previous elegant room. Thus one could clearly hear the conversation between Ji Yushu and Shin Miao. Both of their conversation was heard by Xie Jingxing and Gao Yang. One knew that the three people that Shin Miao inquired about were all here, so it was strange to think about it. Ji Yushu, are you stupid? Gao Yang said. Shin Miao only returned to the Ding capital a few days ago. Unless she has clairvoyance, how would she know what I did in the palace? I still suspect that there is a problem with you. Chapter 481. What problem do I have? Shin young lady did not inquire about me. Why would she inquire about you without any rhyme or reason? Could it be that she is fond of you? But Shin young lady does not admire third older brother's beauty? Ji Yushu thought of something and smiled mischievously. Heh heh heh. Shin young lady is also smitten by third older brother. Only a fool like you would believe this kind of nonsense. Gao Yang looked at him coldly. Do you think that everyone is like you who would be blinded by beauty? Ji Yushu patted his chest. I cannot win against you in words. I will not talk to you anymore. Third older brother, what to do now? Do you look for her? Or just randomly fabricate news to deceive her? Since Shin Miao inquired about these three news, she must have some understanding. If one were to deceive, one might be discovered. What was Shen Miao's intention? Now one really could not see the Shen family's position clearly. In these 2 years, there was also that Pei Lang who had a private friendship with Shen Miao, and now he had become Fu Xiuyi's confidant. How could a young lady be so complicated? Gao Yang rambled on for a while and discovered that Xie Jingxing did not listen to his words at all and was looking at the teapot on the table, not knowing what he was thinking about. So he reminded, Xie, Your Highness, how to deal with this time. Xie Jingxing recovered to his senses and thought about it. No need to deal with it. Why? Without waiting for Gao Yang to speak, Ji Yushu spoke first. Not earning money? Moreover, Shen young lady is exceptionally intelligent. If one were to really reject like this, she would definitely discover that something is wrong. What if it is discovered that there is something wrong with our Feng Xian pawn shop? Xie Jingxing smiled faintly. It is because she is intelligent that one need not deal with it. Your meaning is... Gao Yang's brows frowned. She discovered that something is not right and came over to probe. Xie Jingxing narrowed his eyes and his lips hooked up. Those words were not said for you to hear, but for me to hear. That peerless beauty? Ji Yushu's focus was always on other things. Xie Jingxing swept a cold glance at him and said, It was also said for me to hear. In the carriage outside, Jingzhe and Guyu carefully looked at Shen Miao's expression, and Guyu softly said, Young lady, did that manager Ji say something wrong? The girl looks a little angry. She was indeed very angry. Even though Shen Miao looked calm on the surface, the coldness around her made the two maids feel it. He seemed to be sulking, but also seemed to be angry. He was just suppressing his anger. Jingzhe and Guyu were very puzzled as they heard Shen Miao and Ji Yushu talking in the elegant room. Even though Ji Yushu's words were not pleasant to hear, but just now Shen Miao was still fine. Moreover, Shen Miao was not a person who would get angry because of words. Jingzhe and Guyu did not understand. Shen Miao lightly replied, Nothing, but her tone became colder. She clenched her fists tightly in her sleeves, but there was an uncontrollable stifling feeling in her heart. Didn't the Feng Xian pawn shop close down after she left and reopened not long before she returned to the capital? How could there be such a coincidence in the world? All the coincidences in the world could be traced. Shen Miao carefully thought about it. When the Feng Xian pawn shop closed, other than Shen Xian going to the Shaochun city, there was another major event that happened, and that was Xie Jingxing requesting the commander to send out troops. As for the reopening of the Feng Xian pawn shop, other than her returning to the capital, was it not coincidentally the Ming Qi's tribute, when the Crown Prince of Qin and Prince Rui arrived at the Ding capital? The Shen family and the Feng Xian pawn shop did not have any relationship, so naturally it would not be related to the Shen family. Huang Fu Hao was not in the Ding capital 2 years ago, so no matter how one thought about it, the closure and reopening of the shop had an indelible relationship with Xie Jingxing. Today, she came to the Feng Xian pawn shop to probe. The result of the probe was indeed as she expected. Ji Yushu and Xie Jingxing were old acquaintances, and it was the same for Gao Yang. Connecting everything, one feared that Ji Yushu and Gao Yang were great Liang's people, but had hidden their identities in the Ding capital. The most hateful thing was that when she did business with Ji Yushu, she revealed everything about Prince Yu residence, and one feared that Xie Jingxing already knew everything clearly. She thought that she had taken the initiative and had Ji Yushu firmly in her grasp, but in the end Xie Jingxing was the Oriole behind. Thinking of how Xie Jingxing played people like a fool, Shen Miao could not wait to tear Xie Jingxing apart. Her heart was stifled. When Jingzhe saw the situation, she thought that she was tired of the heat and opened the curtain to get some fresh air, but quickly put it down again. Shen Miao casually glanced and did not expect to see a familiar face in the crowd on the street. Jingzhe put down the curtain but was stopped by Shen Miao's shout to stop the carriage. She opened the curtain and looked towards the direction just now, but there was no longer that face in the crowd. Young lady, Jingzhe and Guyu were alarmed by Shen Miao's actions today, but they saw Shen Miao carefully looking outside the carriage for a while before putting down the curtain. Nothing much. Continue on. It was just that her brows were locked tightly and her expression was even more solemn than before. Chapter 482. Shen Xian and wife returned to the capital with such great fanfare, and Shen Miao was in the limelight in front of all the civil and military officials in Ming Qi's tribute banquet. At the same time, everyone was talking about it. They also turned their eyes towards the original formidable general residence. The formidable great general was no longer there, and the signboard of the general residence had long been removed and replaced with the Shen residence. At the beginning, when Shen Xian was demoted and left the capital, the Shen family not only did not send charcoal in the snowy weather, but also proposed to separate at the crucial moment to draw a clear relationship with Shen Xian. Now that Shen Xian was once again highly regarded by Emperor Wen Hui, no matter what Emperor Wen Hui's intention was, outsiders would see the Shen family as gloating, and as for the Shen family themselves, naturally they had to swallow the bitter fruit. In Rongjingtang, old Shen Foreign was sitting on the couch, and the fur on the couch was the wolf skin that was hunted in the northwest region when Shen Xian was still alive. Because it had been a long time, the edges were somewhat flat. In the past, every year when Shen Xian returned to the capital, he would bring some animal skins that were hunted in the northwest region for old Shen Foreign, and that was something that could not be bought in the capital. Now that Shen Xian no longer sent animal skins, old Shen Foreign could only use the old goods. And Rongjingtang was no longer as exquisite and luxurious as it was in the past, and even the decorations on the partitions were much lesser. In the beginning, Shen Xian was endlessly rewarded by the emperor, and even the entire Shen residence lived comfortably, but now without Shen Xian's help, Chen Roqiu was in charge of the housekeeping, and the days were somewhat stretched. Number 3's family is getting more and more excessive. Old Shen Foreign drank a mouthful of ginseng tea, and her face almost wrinkled together. She said, "Seeing that winter is coming, yesterday she went to find a tailor to make a fur cloak for me, but it was also pushing and pulling. This family's money is all in her own pocket." The maid behind carefully massaged old Shen Foreign's shoulders and lowered her head without speaking. Now old Shen Foreign's temper was becoming more and more temperamental. Ever since Shen Yuanbo died of smallpox a year ago, old Shen Foreign would often lose her temper. Shen Yuanbo's premature death was an unspeakable pain for the Shen family. A year ago, there were a number of people who were infected with smallpox in the Ding capital, and even though it was finally controlled, the spread of the epidemic was stopped and it did not cause a greater impact. But in the end, there were still some who died, and unfortunately, Shen Yuanbo was one of them. In the second household of the Shen family, Shen Gui originally had 2 sons, and Shen Yuan had already died under the executioner's knife. Originally, there was still Shen Yuanbo to rely on, but once Shen Yuanbo died, Shen Gui went crazy, and Ren Wanyun hung herself in the courtyard after Shen Yuanbo died. After Ren Wanyun's death, Shen Yuanbo started to crazily take in concubines and bring women into the room, but there was no movement for a year and a half. Afterwards, old Shen Foreign finally felt that something was not right and found a physician to take a look at Shen Gui. The physician said that Shen Gui had taken an infertility medicine and injured the roots of his offspring, so it was impossible for him to have any offspring in this lifetime. Old Shen Foreign fainted after hearing it, and Shen Gui was also silly. After Shen Gui investigated, he ended up finding the dead Ren Wanyun. Ren Wanyun had once drugged Shen Gui with the intention to protect Shen Yuanbo's Di-Sun position, but who knew that Shen Yuanbo's life was destined to have such a calamity? With Ren Wanyun's death, naturally Shen Gui could not do anything to her. In the original second household, Shen Gui only had Shen Dongling left. Shen Dongling's status rose because of this, and Wan Yinyang changed and became the only person who gave birth to a child for Shen Gui. Ever since Shen Gui knew that he would not have any descendants in this lifetime, he no longer had the heart to advance in his career. There was not even a person to carry on the family line. So what was the point of earning a mountain of gold and silver? Spending the entire day in debauchery, it was very lively. It was impossible for the second household to give birth to any offspring. Thus old Shen Foreign could only turn her gaze towards the third household, Shen Wan. Shen Wan was not forced to take the infertility medicine, but Chen Roqiu had trapped Shen Wan's heart to death. Even the 2 Tongfang that old Shen Foreign stuffed into Shen Wan in the early years were only decorations in the third household. Chapter 483. Old Shen Foreign said, "Not only is the housekeeping a mess, she is also easily jealous." Saying that she is a noble young lady raised by a scholarly family, One do not know where did she learn the lowly ways of a small family and behave in a lowly manner, not thinking of spreading branches and leaves for one's husband, and only know how to use foxy methods. Now that the third household does not have a D-son, one do not know what kind of intentions she has. Zhang Mama smiled. Old foreign need not be angry. Currently, third master still does not know the good of other young ladies. Third master is very affectionate, and after a few days when those newly bought young ladies arrive, old foreign will send both of them to third master. They are all at the age of flowers and jade, so third master will naturally know the good of them. Old Shen foreign sent people to buy Yangzhou skinny horses. For a person like Shunwan, one fear that an empty beauty would not be able to win over Shunwan's heart. Chen Roqiu also relied on her poetic and picturesque skills to make Shunwan look at her in a different light. Those Yangzhou skinny horses were trained since young and were proficient in the four arts of zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Their looks were top-notch, and there was no male that did not love them. Old Shinforen did not believe that Shunwan was after all a man and would not be greedy. No matter how good Shinrochio was, she was also old. All of them make me angry, old Shunforen said unhappily. One do not know where did Sister Chio learn to be like her mother, to have a very high attitude. She had mentioned so many families, and all of them were wealthy and well off, but she did not fancy any of them. Could it be that she still wants to marry a prince? Zhang Mama frowned. Old Shinforen's habit of speaking without any filter had not changed at all. She smiled apologetically. Second young lady is born well, and one fear that third master also have a decision in his heart and want to keep second young lady in a good family. Staying will become enmity. Old Shinforen snorted coldly. Just wait and see. I want to see what kind of marriage third master's family can find for Sister Chio. In Chio Shueyuan, Chinro Chio pressed her forehead. Her personal maid Shiqing said, Madam, your servant has gone to Rongjing Tang to inquire. Lao Fu really did find several thin Yangzhou horses for San Leoi, and in a few days they will be delivered to the mansion. Madam, old madam is slapping your face. Chinrochio closed her eyes and fiercely swept all the books on the table onto the floor. A series of pai li pa la sounds shocked the maids in the room, and they did not dare to make a sound. Even though Chinrochio was still as gentle and considerate as before in front of Shunwan, but the servants could clearly feel that third foreign Chinrochio's temper had become fiercer in these 2 years. Most likely it was because she was in charge of the public finances and needed to balance the money between the various households. And old Shunforen liked to be extravagant, so Chinrochio did not reduce her own money. In the past, she didn't need to eat the food of the mortal world, so she could naturally live a life of self-cultivation. Now that she was entangled with worldly affairs, she felt that every day was a mess. Of course, the most important thing was that he had no children. She said coldly, this old fart, buying a skinny horse for his son. He really has no sense of shame. If Shunwan was present, his jaw would probably drop. The gentle and graceful person, whose voice was always like a gentle breeze and drizzling rain, actually spoke so harshly. Huai said, Madam's temper is too good. If this goes on, sooner or later old foreign will stuff people into master's room. Chinrochio took a breath and turned to look at the two maids, Shiqing and Huai. These were the personal maids that she had promoted, and now they were at the right age of 18 or 19. They were like plump fruits and had a honey-like aura from head to toe. This kind of dainty beauty. Her lips hooked up and said, Old foreign is really muddle-headed. If she really wants to stuff women into our courtyard, why go outside to look for those dirty people? One's background is not clear, and one is not afraid of spoiling the family's reputation. It is better to find some clean and obedient ones from the side. One can be at ease when using them and also feel comfortable when serving. I look at both of you and think that it is not bad. Chapter 484. Although her words were gentle, her eyes were very sharp. The two maids jumped in fright and quickly knelt down, saying, We don't dare. We only want to serve Madam wholeheartedly. We don't dare to have any other thoughts. Chenrochio looked down at them for a while, and the two maids were so scared that their legs were trembling. She then lightly said, Get up. Since you are not willing, I will not force you. Many thanks to foreign. The two maids trembled as they stood up, and their hearts sighed in relief at the same time. Chunrocho looked gentle on the outside and treated people kindly, but as Chunrocho's personal maids, they had seen Chunrocho's methods. In fact, there were a few good-looking maids that rushed to stick to Shenwan. Even though Shenwan did not show much interest, he did not reject them too much. These few maids were later punished by Chunrocho with a reason. Not only did they decline, they also implicated the entire family. Shiqing and Hua Yi were very clear in their hearts that Chunrocho was an extremely jealous person and her methods were ruthless. If one really had a relationship with Shenwan, one feared that one would die until not even bones would be left. Chunrocho sighed. One can only blame me for not having the ability to give birth to a son for master. If I was able to give birth to a son, it would not be such a situation now. Shiqing and Hua Yi did not dare to speak casually. After all, children were the pain in Chunrocho's heart. Chunrocho muttered, now that the Shun residence has declined to such a state, there is not even a son among the younger generation. Even if there was one in the second household, they are all dead now. Now I am envious of Luo Shuiyan. She has children, but no parents-in-law. Shin Xian treats her like a jewel and does not even have a Tong Fong. It really makes one jealous. Thinking of yesterday at the tribute banquet, Shun Miao was in the limelight. Looking at Xin Yu again, it was obvious that her looks and talents were much higher than Xin Miao, but because of the declining reputation of the Xin family, she could not even find a good husband. Not to mention Xian Yu's yearning for Prince Ding. There was a trace of unwillingness in Chunrocho's heart. She had been competitive all her life, but now she was trampled by the vulgar daughter of a military general that she looked down upon. At this moment, an old maid suddenly came in from outside and said, Madam, someone is looking for old Madam outside the mansion's entrance, but was stopped by Madam's servant. Madam, he said that he came to seek refuge with the Xin family. When Chunrocho heard it, she frowned and thought that it was old Shinforan's relatives who were unrelated to her that came over. The Jing clan was gone, but there were still these strange people. His expression immediately turned cold and he said, Since you're here to ask for money, give them 2 silver ingots and send them away. This mansion can't afford to have idle people. Don't let any Tom, Dick, or Harry in. Nope. The manservant scratched his head and said, Madam, that person doesn't look like she's here to take advantage of us. She said that she's the daughter of an old friend of the general. Something happened to her family, and she's desperate to seek help. Old General Shin? Chunrocho thought for a moment before standing up and said, Bring her to the side room. I will go and meet her. When Shen Miao returned to the residence from Fengxian pawn shop, it was still very early. When she entered the room, she locked herself in and one did not know what she was thinking about. When it was close to evening, Luo Tan returned. Luo Tan bought some jewelry and generously gave some to Shen Miao, Biao youngest sister. Today we went to the jeweler's shops. The jeweler's shops in the Ding capital are very big. Young Lady Feng and I also picked some for you. One do not know if you like it. You take it first and later when you want to go out, we can go shopping again. She actually had a look of wanting to continue. Shen Miao turned her head and said yes. After Luo Tan left, she looked at the half box of jewelry and thought about how much money could be pawned. Chapter 485. Shin Xian and entourage came back not long after Luo Tan and everyone ate dinner together. Shin Xian and Luo Shuiyan seemed to be in a good mood, probably because the matters in the officialdom were very smooth. Only Shun Miao seemed to be slightly embarrassed. Luo Ling noticed it and said, Younger Biao's sister looks somewhat unwell. What happened? Shin Xiao put down his chopsticks. Sister, what's wrong? Shin Miao was surprised for a moment, and when she saw everyone at the table staring at her, she smiled. Nothing much. It is just that one had just returned to the capital from the Shaochun city and feels somewhat not used to it. Just stay for a few days. Shin Xiao smiled and said, What's there to not be used to? If little sister isn't used to it, I can bring little sister to stroll from the east to the west of the city, and from the south to the north when I'm free in a few days. Little sister will get used to it after walking a few more times. Cousin Xiao, bring me along too. Luo Tan hurriedly said, I can also protect little cousin sister. Nonsense, Luo Shuiyan said. If your younger sister really go around the Ding capital with you, one fear that she would be exhausted. The Ding capital is so big. What if something happens? She glared at Shenxian, wanting Shenxian to help. Shenxian laughed and said, "It's fine as long as the children are happy. Brat, if you're going to bring your younger sisters out to play, then bring your father's troops along. Whoever dares to cause trouble, beat them to death. Don't be afraid." Luo Shuiyin was so angry that she pinched him. The husband and wife quarreled with each other, but they seemed to be very close. Shenxian was awe-inspiring outside, but when he returned home, he listened to Luo Shuiyin's every word. Shen Miao was originally smiling as she watched, but as she watched, one did not know what she was thinking about, and her expression gradually turned gloomy. She quickly lowered her head so that the surrounding people would not notice that there was something wrong with her expression. Luo Ling, who was beside her paying attention to her every move, paused slightly and lowered his head thoughtfully. After the meal, they chatted for a while in the hall before going back to their respective rooms. Shen Miao prepared to return to her own courtyard as Luo Tan's courtyard was in front of Shen Miao, so she skipped back to her room first. When they reached Shen Miao's courtyard, Shen Miao prepared to enter but was stopped by Luo Ling. "Cousin, wait." Shen Miao turned her head and looked at him. "What is the matter with older brother Ling?" Luo Ling hesitated for a moment before finally taking out a square thing from his sleeves. He said warmly, "When I went out with my cousin today, I happened to see a shop selling this outside. I saw that there were quite a lot of people buying it, so I bought one. I heard that cousin's sister often dreams at night. This thing has been soaked in spices and has the effect of concentrating. If cousin's sister doesn't mind, please accept it." Shen Miao was slightly surprised and looked up at the young man in front of her. Luo Ling was born with good looks. Even though he could not be compared to Shen Xiu's bravery and was not as handsome as Xie Jingxing, and even Ji Yushu looked more delicate and cute than him, but that kind of warmth that came from the heart made one feel comfortable. Among the younger generation of the Luo family, Luo Ling was the most outstanding one. Not only was he the most steady, but he was able to shoulder the heavy responsibility of the family and was sincere. In the night, one seemed to be able to see Luo Ling's slightly red face. He said uncomfortably, "If my cousin doesn't like it." Shen Miao took the things from Luo Ling's hands lightly and smiled. "How can I bear to reject older Biao brother's kind intentions?" "Thank you, older Biao brother." Luo Ling smiled gently. "It is good that you like it." His eyes were gentle and his words were filled with concern. It was a very comfortable attitude, and if it was an ordinary female, not to say that they were tempted, they would have a very good impression of the person in front. But Shen Miao took a step back and looked at him. "If there is nothing else, I will return to the room first." There was a flash of disappointment in Luo Ling's eyes, but he quickly covered it up. One will not disturb younger Biao's sister. He turned and left. Chapter 486. Shen Miao looked at Luo Ling's back as he left and quietly watched for a while. She was not an inexperienced young female who did not know about matters. Even if she did not enjoy the tenderness and honeyed feelings between men and women with Fu Xiu Yi, she had after all stayed in the palace for so many years. Luo Ling was a good person, and she was too selfish to pull such a good person into her life that was filled with schemes and schemes. Even though Luo Ling was a very good person, the Luo family treated her well, thus she could not repay kindness with enmity. She turned around and returned to her own room. After washing up, Jingzhe and Guyu withdrew and Shen Miao sat in front of the table and spread out the things that Luo Ling gave her. It was a handkerchief, and coincidentally, it was a double-sided embroidered handkerchief. In the Ding capital, the handkerchief embroidered on the top was the most difficult to find, and one thought that Luo Ling had spent a lot of money to buy this handkerchief. There was a white crane embroidered on it, and it was in line with his character that had no desires, and it emitted a faint fragrance that made one's mind feel at ease. Shen Miao looked at it for a long time. The lines on the handkerchief were obviously from Lu Ying's hands. Lu Ying's craftsmanship was one of the best in the Ding capital, and in addition this was a double-sided embroidery that was rarely seen in Mingqi. It seemed that Lu Ying was living well. As Shen Miao looked at it, her depressed mood became better because of the person that she met in the rain today. She felt somewhat tired, so she took off her outer robe and only wore her inner clothes. She walked to the couch and sat down. Just as she was about to take off her inner clothes to rest, she heard a light laugh. "Wait." Shen Miao's hands paused, and when she turned her head back, her raging anger could not be concealed at all. She looked at a certain person who came in uninvited and said word by word, "Xie Jing." Xing, that person entered the room and closed the window, leisurely and contented as if it was his own backyard. This time he did not wear a mask, and a handsome and beautiful face was exposed under the light, making one's life seductive, but Shen Miao only wanted to drag him out and behead him. Under the heavens, only you can call me Xiao Zi. Xie Jingxing casually pulled a chair over and sat down not far from Shen Miao's couch. He smiled lightly. In the world, there is only you who have this honor. He was tall, and when he sat down, he was actually taller than Shen Miao by quite a bit. He really didn't want to relax his imposing manner at all. Shen Miao looked at him coldly. Prince Rue is very idle every day, and is very familiar with the route from Yanqing Lane to here. It's simple. Xie Jingxing propped up his chin. I have bought all the residences from Yanqing Lane to here. Now the residence that you are staying in next to is also my courtyard. Since we are distant relatives and good neighbors, this prince came to pay a visit. Shen Miao sucked in a breath of cold air. Even though the Yanqing Lane was close to the Shen Mansion, there was still some distance. Xie Jingxing bought all the residences from the Yanqing Lane to the Shen Mansion. Didn't that mean that more than half of the southern part of the city was his own courtyard? The courtyard next to the Shen Mansion was also bought by Xie Jingxing. Even if Xie Jingxing had money, he would not spend it like this. Did he bring the treasury of the Great Liang with him? He squandered money like dirt. Did Emperor Yonglu of the Great Liang know about it? When she saw the smile on Xie Jingxing's face, Shen Miao was so angry. Xie Jingxing was so shameless to say that he was distant relatives and good neighbors, but who would choose to visit their neighbors in the middle of the night? Without an invitation, he came uninvited. Was the imperial family of the Great Liang so unruly? You do not look very happy. Xie Jingxing looked at her with interest. If there is any difficulty, you can tell older brother. Prince Rue's identity can still help on account of old acquaintance. Shen Miao rolled her eyes at him. She was getting more and more unclear of what Xie Jingxing wanted to do. Xie Jingxing's words reminded her. Thinking of the words that she said to Ji Yushu at the Fengxian pawn shop, Shen Miao suddenly had some thoughts and deliberately asked, Xie Jingxing, what do you think about Madame Feng of the residence of the Marquis of Lineage? Chapter 487. Madame Feng of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and was Xie Chongwu's and Xie Chongchao's birth mother. At that time, Princess Yuqing's death was more or less related to Madame Feng. Everyone knew that Princess Yuqing was something that Xie Jingxing could not mention, but Shen Miao mentioned it. Xie Jingxing looked at her with a faint smile. Do you want to trick me? Will you tell me? There is no harm in telling you. Xie Jingxing lazily said, in my eyes, you are worse than an ant. Shen Miao looked at him. Why did you not kill her for revenge? Xie Jingxing narrowed his eyes and stared at Shen Miao for a while before suddenly laughing. His voice was like the peach blossom wine that was buried in the spring and dug out in the winter. It was mellow like the spring breeze that made one intoxicated, but also like the biting cold of winter that made one awake. He said, Shen Miao, are you worried that Shen Xian will become the second Xieding? Shen Miao's eyes hung down. Correct? After a pause, she said, if I was in your position, I would think of all ways to take revenge. Only by killing Madame Feng, and then killing her 2 sons will I be able to take revenge. Only then will I not have lived in vain. She said it coldly, as if she didn't feel how ruthless her words were. When Xie Jingxing heard this, he wasn't surprised and only laughed, as if he was laughing at her naivety. Xie Jingxing said, not killing Madame Feng is because of disdain and fear of trouble. Xieding and Princess Yuqing have nothing to do with me, so why should I take revenge? Shen Miao was surprised. Xieding and Xie Jingxing were not father and son. Shen Miao heard it from Xie Jingxing before and did not feel surprised. But how come Princess Yuqing did not have any relationship with Xie Jingxing? The blood flowing in Xie Jingxing's body did not belong to Xieding and Princess Yuqing, so how did he become the son of the Xie family? Shen Miao's heart moved as she thought of something and asked Xie Jingxing, then Princess Yuqing's son, dead? Xie Jingxing said plainly, he died when he was born. He had died when he was born, but after that, there was no news of him at all. It seemed that Xie Jingxing had already been stuffed over at that time, and no one found out about it. Princess Yuqing herself might not even know about it. If Xieding's son was alive, he would not live past the age of 3 before dying. Xie Jingxing said indifferently, "Because of me, Madame Fong did not dare to do it." Because. His smile was somewhat sinister. The people who were sent here would mysteriously disappear. Shun Miao was suddenly enlightened. She had said before that Madame Fong was able to force Princess Yuqing into such a sorry state and even withered like a flower at the end. She must be someone with means and ambition. How would such a person be able to live in seclusion and live so peacefully and even let Xie Jingxing grow up safe and sound? As it turned out, it was a bad plan. The people they sent out would always mysteriously disappear. Madame Fong herself probably felt that it was strange, so she settled for the next best thing. As for why those people would disappear, since Xie Jingxing was Prince Rui of the Liang dynasty, there would be capable people around him. It should be more than enough to deal with Madame Fong. Some of the things that she didn't understand before suddenly became clear, and she forgot about those annoying things from before. Xie Jingxing looked down at her and said, "You need not worry. Shin Xian and Xieding are different." Shin Miao said, "I am also different from you." Xie Jingxing was slightly startled and heard Shin Miao saying, "You are disdainful and there is no need. But I am different. If there is someone like Madame Fong who shakes my family, I will spare no effort to make her suffer the consequences of her own actions. If there is someone like Madame Fong who harbors evil intentions and attempts to destroy it, I will tear her to pieces inside and out and drag her to a mass grave to feed the dogs." Finishing her words, she lowered her head, but her eyes were filled with other emotions. But she felt her head sink as Xie Jingxing's hand pressed on her head and said, "If there is such a person, just tell me. Distant relatives and good neighbors, I will kill him for you and not leave any future troubles." Shin Miao shook off his hand, and Xie Jingxing looked at her with a smile. His expression was undisciplined and his words had a joking tone, as if he was saying it casually, but his pair of eyes seemed to be serious. If Xie Jingxing wanted to kill someone, it was indeed an easy matter to kill someone of Madame Fong's level. Shin Miao said, "I can also do this kind of thing like killing. It is not a good move to take action yourself until the last moment." Xie Jingxing said, "If you really feel apologetic, it is all right to give me something as a reward." Shin Miao said sarcastically, "Your Highness Prince Rui is a precious gold and jade. I cannot afford to pay for an invitation." Xie Jingxing smiled. "I will give you 20%. He stood up and walked to the front of the table. Just now Shun Miao had spread out the handkerchief that Luoling gave her. Xie Jingxing casually picked it up and sniffed it before raising his eyebrows. Even though the fragrance is poor, this prince's dogs have not been sleeping well recently. It is not bad to make do with it. Not waiting for Shun Miao to speak, Xie Jingxing kept the handkerchief into his sleeves. This is considered as a reward. Chapter 488. After the tribute banquet, the Ding capital was still lively. Because of welcoming the nobles from the great Liang and Qin country, the streets were much more bustling than usual. No matter when, the imperial family of Ming-Chi hoped to be able to have a flourishing appearance in front of other countries. In the Shin residence, the servants in Qiushui Yuan were talking about a new topic. What is the background of the new young lady in the residence? Is it worth third foreign to treat her in such a good manner? This year's new tea leaves were first brewed for that young lady. Could it be a noble person in the residence? An old woman wearing a green gown whispered, "Heard that this young lady's father and old general were very close in the past, and at that time even blocked a knife for old general and almost lost his life." A young maid quickly covered her mouth and said in surprise, "No wonder. Being benevolent to old general is the same as being benevolent to the Shin family. No wonder she is treated as a guest of honor. It is said that she is here to seek shelter. Most likely something happened in the family." Looking at third foreign's appearance, it seems that she wants to take good care of this young lady. What care? Currently the lives of the people in the residence are stretched to make ends meet, and there is still a freeloader. It is better to send her away as soon as possible. When the words were said, the surroundings were silent. Now the Shun residence looked good on the surface, But the people inside were well aware that ever since Shan Xian's branch was split out, the money was much tighter, and even the monthly salary of the servants had reduced by a lot. As such, even if it was a great noble, the servants would not be happy if she came over to freeload. One do not know why Third Foreign is so harsh to us on normal days, but this time she is so generous to that young lady. Someone said in puzzlement. In Qiu Shui Yuan, Run Wan Yun was sitting in the room at the moment and pushed the teacup in front of her to the female opposite her and smiled. Newly produced tea leaves, Chui Jian. Young lady Qing, have a taste? The female sitting opposite her was wearing an emerald green embroidered long dress. There wasn't any fine embroidery on the long dress. This kind of dress was very simple, and the color was very picky. If one didn't wear it well, they would look like a country girl. However, when worn by the woman in front of him, it was very comfortable and pleasing to the eye. This woman looked to be in her early 20s. Her clothes and hair accessories were also very simple. She looked very graceful and gentle. Most importantly, she had a strong scholarly air about her. With one look, one could tell that she was a girl raised in a scholarly family. Just by looking at her, one could tell that she was well educated. Chen Roqiu had always disdained that martial artists like to be genteel, and it was the same for humans. Seeing this female in front of her, she had a feeling of mutual appreciation and was more polite. When this female saw Chen Roqiu's enthusiasm, she did not delay and picked up the teacup to take a sip before saying with a smile, "The tea is very light but mellow. The tea leaves are scattered but the smell is thick. Foreign's tea making is also outstanding. Miss Ziqing also understands the way of tea." Chen Roqiu's smile deepened. "The way of tea is the best, but nowadays there are very few young ladies like you who understand the way of tea. The cool breeze from my 2 armpits makes me want to go to Ponglai." The woman smiled. "Madam is right. Tea ceremony is the best. But foreign should not make fun of me. I am currently 26. How can I be considered as a young lady?" 26? Chen Roqiu exclaimed, looking at young lady Ziqing's appearance. "I thought that she was 18 or 19. But it is also good. Even though one has the appearance of 18 or 19, one has the bearing of a 20-something-year-old. It is really rare to see such magnanimity and calmness." The green-clad female in front of her was the one who came over to borrow the autumn wind yesterday. Her name was Chang Ziqing. Her father, Chang Hu, was once old General Shun's subordinate, and at that time he blocked a knife for old General Shun on the battlefield, injuring his body, and from then on he could no longer go to the battlefield. Chang Hu's entire family was supported by Chang Hu alone, and old General Shun felt guilty in his heart. Thus he had been secretly taking out money for relief. At that time Chang Ziqing was still young, but Shun Xian was already at the age of getting married. Old General Shun even joked that he wanted Chang Ziqing to be his daughter-in-law. It was just that before seeing Shun Xian marry, old General Shun passed away. Because no one knew that old General Shun was secretly helping Chang Hu's family. After that, the Chang family and the Shun family no longer had any contact. Chapter 489. One did not think that the Chang family would come knocking at this time. A flash of worry appeared in Chang Ziqing's eyes. This time one's heart is very apologetic to suddenly disturb, to give the Shun family such trouble. She looked at Chen Roqiu. Ziqing knows that the request is sudden, and if foreign feels inconvenient, Ziqing will leave now. Even though it was so, the moment she lowered her eyes, she could not help but bite her lips. Chen Roqiu affectionately pulled her hands. "What is young lady Ziqing saying? Since your father saved my father-in-law's life, your Chang family is our Shun family's benefactor. Moreover, old General and the Chang family's friendship was that of brothers who had gone through life and death together. We are all one family. Since we are all one family, seeing that you have difficulties, we cannot just stand by and watch." She patted Chang Ziqing's hands. "Young lady Ziqing only care about staying in our Shun family. Tomorrow I will bring you to see old Tai-Tai, but old Tai-Tai's body is not well and her temper is not good. One fear that you have to be more considerate." Chang Ziqing repeatedly said that she did not dare. Her attitude was natural and polite, not bashful but not overly familiar, making it easy for others to have a good impression of her. Even Chen Roqiu, who was a cautious and vigilant person, would smile and talk to Chang Ziqing. Chang Ziqing's family lived in the Lu province. The reason why she suddenly came to the Shun residence was indeed because she had met with trouble. Chang, who had passed away a few years ago, and the Chang family only had Chang Ziqing and her mother. Chang Foreign was bedridden all year round and finally succumbed to a serious illness a few days ago. After Chang Foreign was buried, there was a son of an official in the Lu province who wanted to snatch Chang Ziqing back to the residence as a concubine. Chang Ziqing was forced into a corner and almost hung herself with a white silk, but was saved by her own wet nurse. The wet nurse then told Chang Ziqing that perhaps Chang, whose old friend, old General Shun, could save her once. Chang Ziqing had seen old General Shun when she was young and vaguely remembered that he was a very forthright and magnanimous soldier. She really could not think of any other way out, thus she gathered enough money to travel to the Ding capital. She just came to the Shun residence and coincidentally met Qinroqiu. After Qinroqiu inquired about the cause and effect, she settled Qinroqiu down. Qinroqiu smiled as she looked at Chang Ziqing. Young lady Ziqing is from a water town like the Lu province, and the Ding capital is not comparable to the Lu province. One do not know if the food is to one's liking. Are you used to living in the West Courtyard? Foreign is too polite. Chang Ziqing replied with a smile. Foreign's care is very thorough. The West Courtyard was also very considerate. But she was a little puzzled. The West Courtyard is so big. Is it usually empty? After saying that, he felt that he was being a little rude. He smiled and said, "It is a little rude to ask like this. I hope Madam will not blame me. I treat you as one of my own. What's there to blame?" Qinroqiu smiled. "One will not hide it from you. You know that in our residence, there are actually 3 households. One think that you have heard of the formidable great general. It is the first household of our Shun family. It was just that 2 years ago there was some misunderstanding in the residence, and the first household moved out. Master and I wanted to explain, but eldest brother and eldest Saw had gone to the Shao Chun city and had just returned recently. We want to explain, but this misunderstanding is too deep." As Qinroqiu spoke, there was a helpless look on her face. She shook her head and said, "I don't know what to do." Chang Ziqing was startled. According to Foreign's words, that Western Courtyard was originally the place where eldest brother's family stayed. Qinroqiu said. Chang Ziqing was suddenly enlightened. Seeing Qinroqiu's somewhat sad look, she advised, "Foreign need not take it to heart. In this world, blood is thicker than water. Since it is a misunderstanding, it will eventually be solved, not to mention that it is a family." After a long time, even if Foreign did not say it, one think that Great General Shun would also feel that these matters are not worth worrying about. Chapter 490. Qinroqiu smiled and said, "I know all these principles, but after hearing young Lady Qing's words, one's heart is much more relieved." She looked at Chang Ziqing. "It would be good if everyone in the Shen residence were as penetrating as you. You are so knowledgeable. In the future, if there is nothing, one must consult you. This child is usually held in the palm of our hands, and one fear that she is spoiled. It is good to have such an intelligent person like you to teach." Foreign's words are too serious. Chang Ziqing followed up with a smile. "Yuer is well-educated and intelligent. I have not seen such an intelligent young lady in the Lu province. One think that she is one of the best in the Ding capital. A female should be like this, erudite and multi-talented, thus one would have a different look." This compliment that did not reveal any traces made Qinroqiu's heart feel extremely comfortable. She chatted more and more warmly with Chang Ziqing and only allowed Chang Ziqing to return when it was almost noon. After Chang Ziqing left, Qing carefully asked while wiping the table, "Does Foreign really want to keep that young lady Qing?" She hesitated for a moment before reminding, "Now that the residence's expenditure is getting bigger, one fear that old Tai-Dai would not be happy if she knew." Old Shin Foreign was becoming more and more stingy, and if she knew that Chang Ziqing came to the Shun residence and the Shun residence had to spend money to raise an idle person, naturally her heart would be extremely dissatisfied. So Qinroqiu previously told Chang Ziqing that old Shun Foreign's temper was not good recently and hoped that she would be more tolerant. What does that short-sighted old woman know? Qinroqiu's face was filled with disdain, unable to accomplish anything and more than spoil things. How would she be able to see the future? Could it be that Foreign feels that this young lady Qing still has some use? Yi's mind was active and knew his Foreign's temperament well. If it was 2 years ago, Chen Rochio would also be willing to play the role of a kind and charitable fairy to gain a good reputation. But now that there was no money and she could not even take care of herself, it was somewhat strange to go and help others. Speech and mannerisms are not as short-sighted as an ordinary female. Good looks and a gentle face. It is rare that her temperament is also gentle. With this kind of intelligence, even if placed in the residence, she would be one of the top characters. It is fine if she does not have the ambition, but once she has the ambition, within 5 years, this woman will definitely achieve something. Chen Rochio smiled. The place that she was born in was filled with scheming by females every day. Chen Rochio's mother was one of the most powerful, and Chen Rochio saw her mother's shadow in Chang Zhaoqing. Even now that Chang Zhaoqing was still so young, one feared that her future achievements would be even more outstanding. But what can such a powerful person do? Huai was puzzled. Could it be that Madame wants to form a good relationship? When Miss Qing achieves meteoric success one day and climbs up to a higher branch, then report to Madame. Chen Rochio smiled when she heard it. Such an intelligent person with a lively mind. I have observed his speech. He looks docile on the surface, but in fact he is proud and arrogant. How would he be willing to submit to others? If you really climb up the tree, don't expect anything in return. She looks down on others. Then, Madam, I cannot bear to give such an outstanding person to others. Chen Rochio looked out of the window. One should not let one's fertile water flow into one's field. A good knife should be used on the blade's edge. But even I feel that I would not be able to fight against such a powerful female. One do not know that person. How many rounds can he last? At the other end, Chang Zhaoqing had returned to the western courtyard. The western courtyard that Shin Xian's family used to live in was now a lot more empty. Originally, there were a number of servants in the western courtyard, but because Shin Xian called his personal guards over to train the soldiers, it was always very lively. Afterwards, after Shin Xian's family moved away, the servants in the western courtyard were all dismissed by Chen Rochio to reduce expenses. Without the soldiers practicing martial arts every day, the huge west courtyard became more and more empty and deserted. Chapter 491. Chang Ziqing's wet nurse, Zhao Mama, saw that Chang Ziqing had returned and quickly came up to help Chang Ziqing take off the cloak and said worriedly, "Young lady, how was the discussion with Third Shinforeign today?" It was Zhao Mama's idea to let Chang Ziqing enter the capital to seek help from the Shin family. As if she did not think of a way, then Chang Ziqing really had no other way to go. But the Shin family and the Chang family had not been in contact for so many years, and people's hearts were fickle. Originally, old General Shen was willing to take care of the Chang family, but now that old General Shen was not around, who knew how the Shin family would treat Chang Ziqing? Chang Ziqing rubbed her forehead and sat down on the soft couch in the room. Third Shinforeign is very enthusiastic and agreed for us to stay for a while. Even if those people came to the Ding capital, one think that they would not dare to provoke the Shin family. Granny Zhao patted her chest and breathed a sigh of relief. She said, "Umitba, it turns out that Master said that everyone in the Shin family has the heart of a Buddha. I was worried about young Miss and was afraid that the Shin family would not help. Now it seems that I can rest assured." Mama is thinking too much. Chang Ziqing sneered and her face revealed a look of disdain. When is there a free lunch in this world? Even when old General Shun took care of the Chang family, it was also because his father had blocked a knife for him that year. In this world, there would not be people who would treat others well for no reason. Third Shinforeign is this enthusiastic because she sees that I am somewhat useful. Zhao Mama was surprised and looked at Chang Ziqing. Young lady's meaning is that Third Shinforeign is not a good person? What should we do? Don't worry, Nanny. Chang Ziqing comforted her, but there was a chill in her eyes. Third Shinforeign has a request of me, but how would I not have a need of her? Although I don't know what she's planning, but she'll find a way. But Granny Zhao still felt uneasy. Do not worry, Momo. Chang Ziqing smiled. No matter how difficult the matter was, we have come through and come to this day. Seeing that there is a way to survive, what is there for me to be afraid of? Since the Shin family was a springboard, he naturally had to make good use of it. Third Shin foreign wants to use me, but I also use her. Zhao Mama looked at Song Zaiqing and finally nodded her head. This old servant only think of young ladies good. Whatever young lady says will be what it is. The Ding capital was the capital of Ming Qi, thus every inch of land was worth its weight in gold, and the most expensive place in the Ding capital, other than the palace, was Yanqing Lane. Yanqing Alley was located in the south of the city. Not far from it were the most prosperous restaurants and shops. Facing the river, the scenery was exceptional. The reason why the land in Yanqing Lane was so expensive, other than being the residence of the nobles of the previous dynasty, was because there was once a famous immortal Taoist who looked at the feng shui here. He said that this place was extremely expensive and had the dragon qi. Other than the nobles, no one could suppress the dragon qi here, and only the venerable of the world could stay here. The imperial family of Ming Qi was not in the southern part of the city, thus they could not carry out a large-scale reconstruction of the palace as the commoners would complain and the treasury would not be able to take out so much money. But who would dare to live in a place with dragon qi? Would the emperor find it disrespectful if he stayed here? Even those who had the guts could not come up with such a large amount of silver. Yanqing Alley had been empty for many years because of this. But at this moment, someone finally moved into Yanqing Lane. It was not someone else but the guests from Qin Country and Great Liang. The Qin Country's crown prince came and the Great Liang's prince of first rank came. They were all legitimate nobles. Money was not a problem. Speaking of which, there was no place more suitable for them to stay in than Yanqing Lane. They could not stay in the palace as if that was the case. One feared that Emperor Wen Hui would not be able to sleep peacefully. One's own palace was occupied by people from other countries, so how could one allow others to sleep soundly on the side couch? It would not be pleasant. At this moment in the innermost residence of Yanqing Lane, there were soldiers guarding it. Even though it was a residence, it was more like a smaller palace. The decorations were luxurious and the area was huge. Even those high-ranking officials' residences would need a few of them to be able to form such a residence. Chapter 492. This residence was the place where Prince Rue lived. There were several residences in Yanqing Lane, and the crown prince of the Qin country chose the residence that was closest to the outside while the innermost one was chosen by Prince Rue. One did not know if it was because he wanted to deliberately keep a distance from the Qin country. No matter what, this residence was the most expensive one in the Yanqing Lane and was twice as expensive as the crown prince's residence. That Prince Rue did not even blink his eyes as he settled down, which made others think that the rumor that the Great Liang's treasury was filled with gold was not a lie. Prince Rue of the Great Liang was also very arrogant. On the first day he stayed here, he let people take down the signboard at the entrance and replaced it with a golden signboard that said, "Residence of Prince Rue." This made one feel angry and funny at the same time. This Prince Rue of the Great Liang ran to Ming Qi to buy a residence and even put up such a signboard. Could it be that he really wanted to stay here? At this moment in a courtyard of Prince Rue's residence, a snow-white thing was flopping around on the ground. This thing is born light, but it is too fierce. It is so small, and it is already so fierce. Why would Master think of keeping it? A yellow-clad female was squatting on the ground and holding a wooden stick to tease the snow-white furball in front of her. Upon closer inspection, one saw that the thing was furry like a doll. Upon closer inspection, it had a pair of clear eyes that were rolling around and had a somewhat clever appearance. At this moment, it was using its claws to scratch the female's hand and even changed its teeth to bite. This thing was none other than a young tiger cub. It was probably born not too long ago and was very tender. Its fur was a rare light color, and the patterns on its fur were not very clear. From afar, it looked like a snow-white tiger. It was indeed lovable. That female teased it and suddenly made a hissing sound as she threw the wooden stick in her hand and said angrily, "This fellow looks so docile, but it is actually a master that bites. It is really painful to bite it. See if I do not tear you up later." "Forget it." Another female voice sounded. It was a slightly charming woman in a light red dress. She looked at the ball on the ground and said, "This was personally brought back by Master Nightingale. I'm afraid that before you can touch it, Master will tear it apart." The woman called Nightingale stood up, and the white tiger cub happily grabbed the corner of her skirt. It turned its head and gave her a big bite. It kept dragging her back, but was kicked away by Nightingale. She walked to the red-dressed female's side. "Hualong, is Master crazy? Why raise a tiger out of nowhere? This tiger looks pretty and cute, but it's so cruel. What if it hurts someone in the future?" Hualong shrugged her shoulders. "It's probably because his temper suddenly came. This white tiger has been eating and sleeping ever since it was brought back. It's only been a few days since it opened its eyes, and it already knows how to bite people. In the future, if Master goes back with a tiger, I'm afraid His Majesty will have a headache when he finds out." Nightingale said with a bitter face, "Why are the two of you slacking off here?" A male's stern voice sounded. The two females looked back and saw a middle-aged man striding over. He walked to the side of the cage and picked up the bowl on top of the cage to take a look. He looked at Nightingale and Hualong with displeasure. "Let the two of you feed and only know how to slack off." "Tai," Nightingale said angrily, "we came out from the tower prison and thought that following Master would be a good job. Who knew that we are here to feed the tiger? We are the people of the MOU army and not those nannies that are breastfeeding. How can one not do anything and only know how to play with the tiger? Just do the things that Master has instructed and do not ask so much." Tai squatted down and took the bowl to feed the white tiger on the ground. The cooked meat was chopped into minced meat and mixed with some eggs. That white tiger went forward to sniff and ate happily. Tai rubbed the white tiger's head, and the human and tiger had a harmonious appearance. He was a big and burly man, but to sit together with a petite tiger, such a warm scene was somewhat strange. Chapter 493. The tiger ate half a bowl and refused to eat anymore. Tai kept the bowl and turned to see Hualong and Nightingale bowing behind him. "Master." Xie Jingxing waved his hand and walked out of the room. The two people behind him were Ji Yushu and Gao Yang. When Ji Yushu saw that white tiger, his eyes stared. "What is this? Dog?" Tai's body trembled. Gao Yang said, "Are you stupid? They are clearly spores." "Spores," Tai said. "Young Master Ji, young Master Gao, it's white tiger." His tone was also protesting for the white tiger. Unfortunately, the tiger cub could not understand the human language. After eating its fill, it chased its tail under the sun like a cat. "Tiger?" Ji Yushu looked at Xie Jingxing. "Third older brother, are you all right? Why are you even raising a tiger now?" Ying said in a crisp voice, "Young Master Ji, this is what Master saw on the way to the Ding capital. There was a hunter who wanted to sell the tiger cub's skin at a high price and was saved by our master." Gao Yang glanced at Xie Jingxing. "When did you become so kind-hearted? It doesn't seem like something you would do." Xie Jingxing did not bother about the two of them. He was wearing a dark purple robe with gold-embroidered vines and was still incomparably gorgeous. However, no matter how gorgeous the clothes were, they could not compare to his outstanding appearance. He slowly walked to the side of the white tiger cub. When the white tiger cub saw a person suddenly appear in front of it, without saying a word, it opened its claws and pounced forward, biting him. However, he was lifted up by the back of his neck. Xie Jingxing lifted the white tiger cub into the air. The cub seemed to be very uncomfortable with such a position, and it kept flapping its legs. Xie Jingxing ignored it and looked at it thoughtfully. "Don't tell me you are going to kill this tiger now." Nightingale made a beheading gesture towards Hualong. Hualong shivered and shook her head. In the end, Xie Jingxing looked at it for a while before pushing aside the white tiger cub's legs. He smiled and said, "It's a female tiger." Everyone, "So what if it's a tigress?" Could it be that Xie Jingxing intended to bring it back to the Great Liang to be Rue Wangfei? The tiger cub howled, but because it was too young, its voice was soft. Xie Jingxing placed it on his chest and held it in his bosom. The white tiger cub lay on his chest and raised its head to howl at him nonstop. However, it seemed like it was acting coquettishly. It was actually very pitiful and cute. Xie Jingxing stretched out his finger and pulled the white tiger's whiskers to tease her. Nightingale was startled and cried out, Master, don't. That white tiger hates people touching its whiskers the most. It will bite. Before he finished speaking, the white tiger bit Xie Jingxing's finger. Huolong and Tai also jumped in shock. Ji Yushu's hands covered his mouth and had an exaggerated look of horror while Gao Yang was rejoicing in others' misfortune. Xie Jingxing calmly stared at the white tiger. After staring for a while, the white tiger suddenly felt a little guilty. It loosened its mouth and turned its head to look elsewhere. There was a shallow bite mark on Xie Jingxing's finger, and it was rather obvious. They have the same eyes and the same temper. Even his habit of biting people is the same. Xie Jingxing looked down at the white tiger in his bosom, but was not angry. Instead, he reached out to touch the white tiger's head. The white tiger seemed to be somewhat sleepy as it yawned and stretched its body but did not struggle. It allowed Xie Jingxing to ravage its head and did not do anything as it laid on Xie Jingxing's chest to rest. The sun lazily shone down its golden rays. The purple-clothed man was gorgeous and handsome. He lowered his eyes to look at the white tiger in his arms. His long eyelashes were slightly curled, but it could not hide his gentle and loving gaze. That white tiger's fur was extremely beautiful as it obediently lay in his bosom. One human and one tiger were as beautiful as a painting, completely different from the strange feeling when Tai was feeding the white tiger. Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows and looked at the tiger cub that was about to fall asleep, still lack a name. If it is so similar, in the future I will call you Jiao Jiao. Ji Yushu clapped his hands. What kind of damn name is this? Third older brother. You want to give this tigress such a delicate name? It is too strange. He protested. Change the name. Tiger Tyrant, Iron Hammer, or Biao older brother are all good. Gao Yang had an unbearable look as he covered his eyes with a fan. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at Ji Yushu and continued to tickle the tiger cub's chin unhurriedly. Shut up. This is my Jiao Jiao. Chapter 494. On the second day, Shun Miao received an invitation. This invitation was not from others, but from the Qin country's Princess Ming An, inviting her to the residence in Yinqing Lane for a gathering. This invitation was sent over by the servants in the gatehouse, and was handed over to Shun Miao by Gu Yu. Initially, she thought that it was sent by Feng and Ning to invite her to play, but one did not think that upon opening it, it was actually from Princess Ming and Jingzhe said worriedly, "This must be fake. How could it be Princess Ming An's invitation?" Without rhyme or reason, Princess Ming An and young lady do not have any friendship. Could it be that someone is impersonating? Gu Yu shook her head. There is the princess's seal on it, so it is not fake. She looked at Shan Miao and said, previously this Princess Ming An was disgraced because of young lady at the tribute banquet, and one fear that she is looking for an opportunity to take revenge. It is better for young lady to reject, as it would be bad if that Princess Ming An has any bad ideas. Jingzhe also nodded her head repeatedly. Right, right, right. It is better to inform Master and Foreign about this matter, and let Master and Foreign decide. Shin Miao thought for a moment before shaking her head. Do not tell others about this matter. With father and mother's temperament, they would definitely use unyielding means. Now that the relationship between the Qin country and Ming Qi is sensitive, it would be all right if it was only a fight between me and Princess Ming An. But if it involves father and mother, one fear that it would involve the court's affairs, and it would not be good to outsmart oneself. Not telling Master and Foreign, Jingzhe asked, could it be that young lady wants to receive this invitation? Jingzhe's heart was naturally not willing. To be together with a princess with ill intentions, and this was not her own territory. If Shun Miao were to suffer, then she would not be able to save her in time. No harm, Shin Miao said, since Princess Ming An had sent me an invitation and the invitation is in my hands, inviting me to her residence. If something really happened to me, Princess Ming An would not be able to get away with it. If the Crown Prince of Qin knew about it, he would also stop it. She wouldn't dare to do anything to me. It's just a little trick. I'm not afraid. But Gu Yu was still very worried. No buts, just do it. The date of the invitation is 2 days later, and I will make a trip there. It is fine as long as outsiders do not know about it. After pausing, she said again, I will let Imo Qing follow along. The invitation is in the residence, and if something really happens, Let Bai Lu and Shuangzhang take the invitation to my eldest brother. Jingzhe and Guyu were extremely unwilling in their hearts, but they could only helplessly agree to Shan Miao's words. Coincidentally, in the outermost residence of the Yinqing Lane, where the imperial family of the Qin country were temporarily staying, Princess Mingyan received a reply from the servant. She opened it and looked at it carefully. Suddenly, she became angry. She threw the invitation on the table and coldly said, "You have some guts. What are you angry about?" A male pushed the door and entered, and when he saw Princess Mingyan's appearance, he frowned and asked. When Princess Mingyan saw the person approaching, she stood up and walked over, and handed the invitation on the table to the other and said in a spoiled manner, "Crown Prince older brother, look at that Shen Miao. I sent her an invitation and she actually replied and agreed to keep the appointment. She's really not afraid of death. You sent her an invitation. If she didn't accept it, she would be too daring. You won't be happy if I accept it. Don't be so unreasonable." Wang Fu Hao, who was well aware of Princess Mingyan's temperament, did not go along with her words, but poured cold water on Princess Mingyan's head. "Crown Prince older brother." Princess Mingyan stomped her feet. "Is she helping me or helping her? That day at the tribute banquet, she made me make a fool of myself and deliberately made me bite an apple. It was clearly to deliberately embarrass me and let our Qin country lose face. Now you not only do not help the Qin country to regain face, but also blame me. What kind of logic is this? Even if one were to return to the Qin country to see Imperial Father, it would not be reasonable." Chapter 495. Huang Fu Hao coldly glanced at Princess Mingyan, and when he thought of the matter at the tribute banquet, his face suddenly sunk. Even though Princess Mingyan's words were not entirely true, after all, it was Princess Mingyan's initiative to compete with Shen Miao in archery. But when Shen Miao let Princess Mingyan bite the apple to compete, it was somewhat overbearing. Even in the last few sentences, there was a hint of mockery. He was not sure if Shen Miao did it on purpose, but if this matter were to spread back to the Qin state, the Qin emperor would definitely blame him. He did not know why, but Huang Fu Hao felt that Shen Miao was very special. That Princess Mingyan's bow was something that other people would need to familiarize themselves with for a few days before they could use it, but she was so proficient that it was as if she had pulled it thousands of times. Occasionally, when he glanced over, his gaze seemed to carry a hint of hostility. Now is not the time for the Ming Qi and the Qin country to be enemies, so why would Shen Miao have hostility towards him and Princess Mingyan? Before this, they did not know each other, and it was only because of Princess Mingyan's difficulties that Shen Miao's vengeance was too heavy. Seeing that Huang Fu Hao did not speak and was thinking about something, Princess Mingyan's eyes suddenly widened in surprise. "Crown Prince older brother, could it be that you are bewitched by her? What is so good about that little slut? Do not forget that before this, the entire world knew that she was obsessed with Prince Ding of Ming Qi and was a complete idiot. She did it so calmly because someone was guiding her from behind. Don't be bewitched by her." Huang Fu Hao impatiently waved his hand. "What are you talking about? As for you, this time in the Qin country, do not forget the things that Imperial Father had instructed you to do. I do not care what you want to do to Shen Miao, but you cannot make a move in this residence. You can do whatever you want in other places as long as you do not pull anything over." One Shen Miao was not a big deal, but now the Emperor of Ming Qi needed to rely on Shen Xian. If Shen Miao was to be touched, Shen Xian would definitely fall out and the alliance with Ming Qi would be destroyed. You'd better look at the bigger picture. Princess Mingyan was showered with such a warning, but her face eased up. It was just that when she looked at it seriously, the anger in her eyes became more intense. She smiled. "Don't worry, brother Crown Prince. I will not find trouble for us. I invited her over just to see what kind of person Shen Miao is. If they really want to fight, they will not use the name of our Qin state. Did you forget that when we were kids, our favorite thing to do was watch dogs bite each other? There are so many dogs in Ming Qi, it is not difficult to find one to work for us." Huang Fu Hao also smiled. "As long as you know your limits." The sky gradually darkened. In the Shen residence of the Ding capital, in the original western courtyard, there was a small lamplit, and Chen Roqiu and Chang Zhaoqing were talking. Chen Roqiu smiled. This handkerchief is embroidered with poems, and it is really nice to look at. Even the ants of the scholar's mansion couldn't compare to Miss Qing's poetry. Originally, I didn't know what ingenious was, but now that I see Miss Qing, I completely understand. Song Zai-Qing pursed her lips and smiled, for an overpraises. It's just that Zai-Qing can't help much here, and I've been living and eating for free all day, so I feel bad about it. So I can only embroider some handkerchiefs. It's not worth much money, so I hope Foreign doesn't mind. I do not dislike it. Qin Roqiu looked at the handkerchief and carefully folded it up and kept it in her sleeves before saying with a smile, I have to hide such a good thing. Otherwise, if Yuera saw it, she would have to take it away from me. Whatever she sees from me, she would always pester me to take it over. This handkerchief is so exquisite that I cannot bear to give it to her. Song Zai-Qing smiled. It is good that Foreign does not mind. If second young lady likes it, I will embroider another one for her. Then the relationship is good. Qin Roqiu also smiled. This way one would not fear that Yuera would take away one's heart. She smiled as she looked at Song Zai-Qing and asked, speaking of which, about the words that I said to Miss Qing previously, how about Miss Qing consider it? Chapter 496. Previously, when Qin Roqiu was chatting with Chang Zhaoqing, she mentioned about Shan Xian's matter. Now Song Zai-Qing had seen everyone else in the Shen residence, other than the first household's family that moved out. Qin Roqiu suggested that since it was the daughter of old General Shen's old subordinate, and Chang who was old General Shen's benefactor, naturally Shen Xian would not reject Chang Zai-Qing. Moreover, Shen Xian was old General Shen's eldest son, so it was reasonable for Song Zai-Qing to pay a visit. Hearing that, Song Zai-Qing hesitated for a moment before shaking her head with a smile. It is already very apologetic for me to come over and disturb Foreign. How would one dare to disturb General Shen? Moreover, Zai-Qing's trip to the Ding capital this time was just to avoid that official son, and once the matter was over, Zai-Qing would leave. It is not good to let General Shen know about this matter. I say that everything about young Lady Qing is good, just that she is too polite. Qin Roqiu pretended to be angry. The relationship between the Chang family and the Shen family is so good that you are one family with us. I heard that when Miss Qing was young, Big Brother had seen you before. You are Big Brother's younger sister, so why would Big Brother feel embarrassed? If you really do not go and see eldest brother in the Ding capital, one fear that eldest brother would be angry if he knew about it. Chang Zai-Qing did not speak and Qin Roqiu patted her hands. Moreover, since you want to hide from that family in the Lu province, it is more convenient for eldest brother. There were many soldiers in their residence, and the guards were tight. Even if that family in the Lu province chased all the way to the Ding capital, they would not dare to act rashly because of eldest brother. Since I treat you as one of my own, I will tell you clearly that Big Brother's place is the place that can truly protect you. Mentioning that family in the Lu province, Chang Zai-Qing's expression changed and her face started to show some uncertain expression. Qin Roqiu said, Young Lady Qing, just treat it as going to your eldest brother's residence as a guest for a period of time. What is there to worry about? Third Foreign do not know. Song Zai-Qing forced a smile. After all, too much time has passed and it is unknown if General Shen still remembers Zai-Qing. Moreover, there is still Shen Foreign, fifth young miss, and eldest young master. I'm afraid that it would be too much of a disturbance if someone were to move in without any reason. Don't worry about that. Qin Roqiu smiled when she heard it. That eldest saw of mine has the best character. Because she is a heroine from a military family, she is straightforward and honest. She does not have any ulterior motives and is a kind person. After knowing about your matter, she could not help but sympathize. Besides, eldest brother doesn't have any other women at home. It's hard for eldest sister to find someone to talk to. If she sees you, I'm sure she'll treat you very well. As for eldest brother and fifth sister, they are both sensible children. It's even more impossible for them to have any disputes with you. Qin Roqiu saw Chang Zai-Qing's wavering expression and smiled. How about this? If young Lady Qing feels that it is not bad, I will get someone to help young Lady Qing write an invitation and send it over. It will not mention our Shen residence and use young Lady Qing's name so that it would not cause any misunderstanding. Young Lady Qing, why don't you pay a visit to Big Brother first and see what his attitude is? If you think it's inappropriate, you can just turn back and not go. Chang Ziqing thought for a long time and finally nodded her head with determination and smiled gratefully at Qin Roqiu. Third foreign, consider everything thoroughly. Ziqing thanks third foreign. See that you are getting more and more polite. Qin Roqiu smiled as she stood up. It is already late, so I will not disturb your rest. Tomorrow I will write an invitation and get someone to send it over. Young Lady Qing need not care about anything. With such a clear and intelligent person like you, no one would not like you. One fear that when eldest brother finds you, he would be happy to have another younger sister like you. Chang Ziqing smiled and said that she did not dare. After sending off Qin Roqiu, Zhao Mama came over to clean the table. Just now, Qin Roqiu and Chang Ziqing's conversation was heard by Zhao Mama. Zhao Mama asked, "Young lady, that third Shen foreign is fine. Why would she mention the matter of General Shun? Could it be that she wants to chase young lady out of the residence?" Chapter 497. Song Ziqing sneered. Originally, I did not understand what third Shen foreign wanted me to do, but now I understand. Third Shen foreign's calculations are very good, to want to use me to deal with others. Zhao Mama was shocked. Young lady, what does third Shen foreign want young lady to do? Song Ziqing sat down in front of the table, and her expression changed unpredictably. She was not a fool, and it was not that she could not hear the hint in Qin Roqiu's words. She said that only Shen Xian could protect her safety, and if she could enter the Shen residence for a lifetime, then she need not worry about those people from the Lu province coming to the door. One said that Luo Shuiyin came from a military family, and her personality was straightforward, without any schemes. It was that Luo Shuiyin was stupid and easy to deal with. As for the lack of women in Shen Xian's inner courtyard, the hint was even more obvious. If Song Ziqing could enter, other than dealing with Luo Shuiyin, who was not that smart, there was no other worries. She said, "Since third Shen foreign regards me so highly, I should first go and take a look at what is going on." Young lady is going to General Shen residence? Zhao Mama was surprised for a moment. Knowing that third Shen foreign has a bad idea, young lady still want to go? It is not a bad idea if used well. Song Ziqing waved her hands. Living in the Shun residence is not a long-term plan. I have to plan for my own future. There is no harm. I am only going to take a look, and if there is anything wrong, naturally I will not jump in. If Zhao Mama looked at her carefully. If one feels that it is not bad, Song Ziqing smiled faintly. Third Shen foreign can be considered to have met my intentions. The night spread into the Ding capital, and every household lit up their lights, making the scene of the brightly lit and prosperous. However, other than the palace, the most prosperous section of the road was still the southern part of the city. The restaurants were filled with singing and dancing, the sounds of drinking, the sounds of females and males laughing, and the sounds of bamboo and Chinese harp intertwined together, making it exceptionally moving. In the residence of Prince Rue, the lights were done extremely well. Even the lanterns were embroidered with gold thread, and once it was lit in the night, it would be eye-catching. Some passers-by drooled, wanting to steal one and remove the golden thread to return the money. However, when they saw the stern and ferocious-looking guards at the door, they could only suppress the guts in their hearts and leave with their tails between their legs. That was something from the residence of Prince Rue of the Great Liang. Who dared to steal it? It was quiet in the mansion, as if there was no one there. At the end of the path, there was a huge courtyard. In the courtyard, there was a beautifully renovated pavilion. The pavilion was adjacent to a clear pond. The water of the pond was emerald green, and the moonlight was alluring. If it was summer, this place would have the unique charm of the wind lotus in the courtyard. Unfortunately, the weather was gradually approaching the beginning of winter. Sitting in the pavilion, one would feel a rustling chill. At this moment, there was a person sitting in the pavilion. The wide flowing gold and purple color almost covered the long bench in the pavilion. It was a very handsome young man. Under the gentle moonlight, his usual valiance gradually became gentler, and his gorgeous facial features became gentler. He lowered his head and played with the tiger cub in his arms. The tiger cub was forcefully pressed on his chest and turned its head in discomfort, trying to turn its body to bite the hand that was scratching its head. Unfortunately, one did not know if it was because its neck was too short or the action of the person who was pressing it was too hard. It failed several times. But this tiger cub was not discouraged and continued to bite on the purple-clad youth's sleeves without getting tired. Xie Jingxing pulled out his sleeves from the tiger cub's mouth and stared at the area that was mostly wet with the tiger cub's saliva. After looking for a long time, he flicked the tiger cub's head. The tiger cub gave an woo sound and finally successfully turned its body and used its claws to play with Xie Jingxing's finger. Chapter 498. In the distant bushes, two heads popped out. Nightingale stared foolishly at the human and tiger in the pavilion, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. One knew that Xie Jingxing had a serious obsession with cleanliness, and normally he did not like animals, and even people close to him would not dare to touch his things. Now that his sleeves were covered with saliva, he was actually this calm. She said, "Has Master recently gone crazy? Why is he hugging a tiger all day, even when eating and sleeping? I heard that he hugged it even when bathing today. Could it be that he really wants to bring this tiger back to the Great Liang to be Rue Wangfei?" Seeing that the person beside her did not move, Nightingale turned her head. "Huolong, you also say a few words." Huolong held her face with both hands and looked at the people in the pavilion. "Master is really good to that tiger cub. You see how gentle his eyes are when he looks at the tiger. Master is so peerless in his generation. If it was me, I would rather turn into a tiger so that I can sleep and bathe with Master." When Huolong talked about these things, she was calm and did not have any shyness. At the end, she sighed and shook her head. "Unfortunately, humans are not as good as tigers. I see that you are possessed." Nightingale despised her. In the pavilion, Xie Jingxing rubbed the tiger cub's head until it was almost pressed against his chest. The tiger cub struggled with all its might, and when it was struggling, it accidentally pounced onto Xie Jingxing's neck and took the opportunity to lick Xie Jingxing's face. "You even secretly kissed me." Xie Jingxing chuckled and lifted the tiger cub up by its neck. He looked at the tiger cub struggling in the air with evil interest and raised his eyebrows. "Humans and tigers are the same." The tiger cub bared its fangs and brandished its claws at him. Xie Jingxing kissed its head. "Be good." In the bushes, Nightingale leaned forward. "Master has gone crazy. I want to go and kill that tiger," Huolong said with a murderous look. Just at this moment, Taiyi's figure suddenly appeared in the pavilion. Xie Jingxing placed the tiger cub back into his embrace and asked, "What is the matter?" Replying to Master, "Today Princess Ming sent an invitation to 5th Shan young lady." "Oh." Xie Jingxing's fingers that were scratching the tiger cub slightly paused. "Princess Ming invites 5th Shan young lady to the residence for a chat." 5th Shan young lady accepted the invitation, and it will be 2 days later. Taiyi bowed and replied, "Got it." Xie Jingxing waved his hand. Taiyi glanced at the tiger cub in Xie Jingxing's arms, and the corner of his mouth twitched. He turned around and retreated into the night. "You're quite daring." Xie Jingxing placed his finger in the tiger cub's mouth. The tiger cub had been eating, bathing, and sleeping with Xie Jingxing, so it seemed to have developed some familiarity with Xie Jingxing. It held his finger in its mouth, but didn't really bite it. It was just playing with it. "Are you going?" Xie Jingxing asked. The white tiger cub howled and looked at him with sparkling eyes. "Think?" Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows. "I will listen to you." In the blink of an eye, 2 days had passed. This morning, Shunmiao also woke up early in Jingzha, and Guyu helped her to find clothes to wear. The weather was gradually entering the beginning of winter, and Ming-Chi's winter always came especially early, and it was especially cold. In the past few days, it rained continuously, and Shen Miao's heavier clothes were damp and could not be found. Guyu took out a cloak from the bottom of the box and said, "This one is rather dry. Even though it is somewhat thick, it is very cold today, so it would not be awkward for young lady to wear it." Shen Miao looked at the cloak in Guyu's hands. It was a snow-white cloak, and it was made from fox skin from top to bottom. It was the rare white fox skin, and there was not a single strand of mixed-colored fur on it. Even after a few years, it was still as clean as new, and it was obviously a good piece of leather. This cloak was the one that Shen Miao left the Ding capital with Shen Xian 2 years ago and stayed in a farmer's house. On the second day, there was an inexplicable additional cloak in the house. The farmer's house did not have this cloak, and Shen Miao did not know where did this thing come from. Previously, she was thinking of when to exchange it for money, but Shan Xiu strongly forbade it, saying that this white fox fur was hard to obtain and it was better to keep it for herself. Chapter 499. Even though it was kept, that cloak really did not fit. It was too big for Shan Miao to wear, so it was kept under the chest and was never taken out to wear. If it was not for Gu Yu digging it out from the chest today, Shan Miao almost forgot about it. She looked at the cloak and thought of something. Previously, when Xie Jingxing flipped through her bedroom at night, he mentioned that he had met her at a farmer's house 2 years ago, but she did not remember as she was drunk that day. Now thinking about it, this cloak should be left behind by Xie Jingxing. She could not remember anything about that night's matter and only knew that Xie Jingxing was talking nonsense, and her face turned a little red. Jingzhe and Gu Yu saw Shen Miao's somewhat uncomfortable look and looked at each other, not knowing what happened to Shen Miao. Jingzhe reminded, "Young lady?" Shen Miao recovered to her senses and looked at the cloak in Gu Yu's hands before saying in a bad mood, "Find an opportunity to pawn it at the pawn shop." But eldest young master said that the skin is very good and does not let young lady pawn it. Gu Yu felt strange. No matter how good the skin is, one do not want it. Shen Miao said, "Send it to the Fengxian pawn shop when you are done packing it." The Fengxian pawn shop collects treasures all the time, so Manager Ji would definitely like this thing. Seeing Shen Miao's appearance, Gu Yu and Jingzhe dared not say anything more and shrugged their shoulders before continuing to look for other cloaks for Shen Miao. Finally, he picked a lilac-colored brocade cloak with rabbit fur, and after helping Shen Miao to freshen up, he found an excuse to go out. Luotan was easy to send away as Shen Xian, and the rest would usually return in the evening from the Ministry of War, and without the eyes and ears of the Shen family, there was much more freedom now. Imo Qing once again acted as the carriage driver. Imo Qing was now Shan Xiu's people, but he would always help Shen Miao to handle matters. Most of the time, Shen Miao would not let Imo Qing tell others about her matters. Imo Qing looked more like Shen Miao's confidant. But Imo Qing was already used to his identity, and every time Shen Miao went out to handle matters, Imo Qing was already used to it. But today, when Imo Qing knew the place that Shen Miao was going to, he was also shocked. It was actually the residence of the crown prince of the Qin country. Shen Miao's actions at the tribute banquet was spread throughout the Ding capital the next day, and naturally Imo Qing knew about it. That Princess Ming'an obviously came with ill intentions, and Imo Qing was somewhat worried, but Shen Miao had a well-thought-out look, so Imo Qing did not say anything. When they reached the residence of the Crown Prince of Qin, the guards outside saw the invitation in Shen Miao's hands and only let Shen Miao wait outside. They said that they would take the invitation to report to their master and would not return. After a long time, Jingzhe could not bear it any longer and said, "It has been almost an hour and these people still have not reported?" It was clear that the Qin princess was deliberately making things difficult for the young lady. Even if there is a heater in the carriage, it will still be very cold outside. If Miss gets sick from the cold, what will the princess say? Gu Yu also said, "This is really too much. Since one took the initiative to invite, then what is the meaning of leaving one outside the residence in the cold?" Usually, when people came to send invitations, they would at least welcome them into the mansion to wait. Even if the relatives of the imperial family had many rules, they shouldn't leave people hanging for more than an hour. Moreover, in the past hour, no one had come forward to greet him. Imo Qing said, "Young lady, it is better to return." Shen Miao shook her head. "Since one is already here, then one should wait. One must give enough face and not let the courtesy fall on the other's side." When she was in the Qin country, Princess Ming'an liked to treat people like this. In the cold of the 12th lunar month, she would use chatting as an excuse to let people wait in the icy cold garden early in the morning. One wait would be a few hours, and sometimes one would wait for an entire day without seeing anyone. Afterwards, a maid would be sent over to say that there were some matters that one could not come. This meant that one had waited for a day in vain. Princess Ming'an's methods were the same as always, superficial and shallow. In the past lifetime, one could endure it, so what was an hour in this lifetime? In the residence of the Crown Prince of Qin, at this moment Princess Mingyan was sitting in the room, and the maid was adding silver charcoal to the brazier. Princess Mingyan picked up the tea on the table and took a sip, but her expression was somewhat carefree. She asked the servant outside, "Has that cheap person left?" "Replying to your highness," the servant said. "Fifth Shun young lady's horse carriage is still at the residence's entrance and had not left." A trace of unhappiness flashed on Princess Ming-An's face. To actually be this patient, she originally thought that by leaving Shan Miao out to dry, the proud and arrogant young lady of an official's family would return to the residence in a fit of anger. After that, she would be able to find a reason to say that Shun Miao was disrespectful to her. But she did not expect that Shun Miao would be this calm. But she smiled. After waiting for so long, one thinks that one's patience is almost exhausted. It is not bad to change methods. Someone passed down Bin Gong's orders to invite Shin Miao in. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.